The pen slipped from trembling fingers and clattered to the floor of the conference room with a sharp crack that echoed like a gunshot. On the 42nd floor of the Aerotech Industries building in downtown Detroit, 15 of America's finest aeronautical engineers stared helplessly at the whiteboard, covered with incorrect equations, confused diagrams, and arrows pointing to nowhere. William Thompson, CEO and founder of the company, gripped the edge of the glass table so tightly his knuckles had turned white. At 58, the businessman who had built an aeronautical empire from a small hangar in Grand Rapids had never faced such a devastating crisis. Tears of desperation rolled down his normally impassive face, a face that had remained stone cold during million-dollar negotiations. "We have 36 hours, he said, his voice breaking. "If we don't solve the Falcon X flight control system problem, we lose the contract with Boeing. We lose everything. 5,000 jobs, 20 years of work, our international reputation." The silence in the room was suffocating. Patricia Williams, the chief engineer and Williams' right hand for 15 years, stared at her notes with a defeated expression. Beside her, James Mitchell, the avionics specialist, slowly shook his head. "We've tried 17 different approaches," James murmured. "The system keeps conflicting with pilot commands during turbulence. It's like the aircraft has a mind of its own." "The FAA investigation is scheduled for tomorrow," Patricia added. "If we don't present a solution, the project will be officially cancelled. And it's not just that. Our certification to develop new systems could be revoked." William closed his eyes, feeling the weight of decades of work crumbling. His company had revolutionized American aviation, created technologies exported worldwide, but now a simple software problem threatened to destroy everything. "Maybe we should accept defeat," Patricia sighed. "We've already spent 2 years and $80 million trying to solve this." "No!" Williams slammed his fist on the table. "I won't let 20 years of work turn to dust. There has to be a solution. There has to be." In that moment, a thin voice cut through the heavy air of the room. A child's voice. "I can solve it." Every head turned toward the door. Leaning against the frame stood a scrawny boy, no more than 9 years old, wearing worn clothes and shoes with holes. His brown hair was disheveled. There was dirt under his small fingernails, and he carried a school backpack mended with duct tape. Security guards were already moving toward him, but William raised his hand. "Wait." The boy showed no fear. His brown eyes, large and bright, fixed on the aircraft diagram on the board, as if it were a puzzle that finally made sense to him. "I can solve it," he repeated, his voice more confident now. "The problem is in the attitude sensor calibration. The system is reacting too quickly to normal fluctuations." The room erupted in murmurs. One of the younger engineers laughed nervously. "William, with all due respect, this is ridiculous. A street kid can't—" "Silence!" William stood up, his eyes fixed on the boy. There was something in that childish gaze, an intelligence that shone like rough diamond. "How did you get up here, son?" "Through the emergency stairs," the boy answered simply. "I saw everyone running around worried. I heard conversations in the elevator about planes with problems. I understand planes." Patricia approached with skepticism. "You understand planes? Where did you learn that?" The boy opened his worn backpack and pulled out a thick, worn book. "Principles of Aeronautical Engineering" by Dr. Anderson Mitchell. The pages were yellowed, the cover peeling, but there were meticulous notes in the margins written in careful childish handwriting. "I found it in the dumpster behind the public library," he explained. "Someone threw it away when they were renovating. I've read it cover to cover 16 times. William took the book carefully. It was a university technical edition, extremely complex even for graduate engineers. He flipped through the pages and found detailed drawings of control systems, hand-derived equations, and diagrams demonstrating deep understanding of flight principles. "My God," he whispered, "who drew this?" "I did," the boy replied, blushing slightly. "When I don't understand something, I draw it until it makes sense. My dad taught me that before he went to heaven." William's heart tightened. "What's your name, son?" "Gabriel Thompson," the boy said, straightening his shoulders with childish pride. "I live at St. Mary's Children's Home, but during the day I stay at the library or around here, watching planes take off from the airport." "And you think you can solve a problem that our best engineers haven't been able to solve for 2 years?" Gabriel nodded with the innocent confidence typical of children. "I can try. God gave me a good brain for math. Dad always said God doesn't give talents to keep them hidden." William looked at his team, then at the boy. In 40 years of career, he had learned to recognize genius when he saw it. And he was seeing it now, in the eyes of an orphaned child. "Give him a marker," he ordered. "William, this is insane," Patricia protested. "We can't trust the company's future to a child who understands our systems better than we do." William interrupted her. "Patricia, look at this book. Look at these notes. This boy is not ordinary." Gabriel approached the whiteboard with hesitant steps. Even on his tiptoes, he could barely reach the top. James moved, brought a chair for him to stand on. "Thank you, sir," Gabriel said politely, climbing onto the chair. For a moment, he simply observed the complex diagram, his little head tilted to one side like a puppy studying a problem. Then he began erasing. With small, precise movements, he removed the conflicting arrows the engineers had drawn. He erased unnecessary equations. He cleaned up the mess of lines that crossed the aircraft drawing. Next, he began to draw. First, a small circle on the wing labeled Primary Attitude Sensor. Then, 2 smaller circles, Backup Sensor A and Backup Sensor B. With delicate lines, he connected the 3 sensors to a central box that he wrote Processing Center. The problem," Gabriel explained with the seriousness of a university professor, but with the high voice of a child, "is that the plane's computer is only listening to one sensor. When it gets nervous about turbulence, it makes the plane fight with the pilot." He drew small arrows representing data flowing from the sensors to the processing center. "But if we make the computer listen to all 3 sensors together," he continued, drawing a triangle connecting the 3 points, "it stays calmer. Like when Miss Dorothy at the home explains to me that I should listen to 3 people before believing gossip." Some engineers smiled despite the tension. The simple analogy made clear a concept they had unnecessarily complicated. Gabriel wrote on the board, "Rule of 3 friends. If 2 sensors agree and 1 disagrees, ignore the different one. If all disagree, ask the pilot." "And for strong turbulence?" Patricia asked, genuinely curious now. Gabriel drew a small box labeled Gentle Filter. "When the plane shakes a lot, instead of getting desperate, the computer counts to 3 before doing anything big. Like when I get angry with someone at the home, Miss Dorothy taught me to count to 10 before speaking." He added a simple equation. "Wait 0.3 seconds plus check 3 times, wiser decision." The room was in absolute silence. 15 brilliant minds, graduated from the world's best universities, stared at the elegant and simple solution created by a 9-year-old child with incomplete basic education. "This," James swallowed hard, "this could actually work." "It's genius in its simplicity," Patricia whispered. "Why didn't we think of this?" Gabriel climbed down from the chair and looked shyly at William. "Can I go now? Miss Carmen, the librarian, worries if I'm gone too long." William knelt in front of the boy, positioning himself at eye level. "Gabriel, you just saved my company. You saved 5,000 people's jobs. How can I thank you?" The boy thought for a moment, shifting his bare feet inside his worn shoes. "Could you let me watch the test? I want to know if it worked. I've never seen a real plane work from the inside." William smiled through his tears. "Of course you can. But first tell me something. Where are your parents?" Gabriel's smile wavered. "Dad died of cancer when I was 6. Mum couldn't handle being alone and she left. Said she'd come back, but it's been 3 years." William's heart broke. "And since then?" "I live at St. Mary's Children's Home. The director, Mrs. Dorothy, is very good to me. And I have Jesus." He touched a small wooden cross hanging on a worn cord around his neck. Dad taught me that Jesus never abandons orphans. William had to control himself not to cry in front of the boy. Gabriel, would you like to see your solution being tested in our flight simulator? Gabriel's eyes lit up like stars. Really? Really? And after that, I want to have a very serious conversation with you about your future. 2 hours later, in Aerotech's simulation laboratory, Gabriel sat in a chair too tall for him, his little legs swinging in the air, watching fascinated as engineers implemented his solution into the flight control software. Initiating flight simulation in adverse conditions, announced the technician in charge. On the giant screen in front of them, a virtual aircraft took off in the middle of a simulated storm. Crosswinds, severe turbulence, conditions that had broken the system dozens of times before. Gabriel bit his lower lip, his small hands intertwined in silent prayer. First, severe turbulence in 3, 2, 1. The virtual aircraft shuddered on the screen. The numbers on the monitors danced wildly. But this time, instead of the usual chaos, the systems remained stable. The gentle filter worked perfectly, preventing abrupt reactions. The rule of 3 friends maintained balance between the sensors. Incredible, James murmured. All parameters are within normal range. Second test, extreme turbulence with sensor failure, the technician continued. Again, the system responded wisely. When one sensor failed, the other 2 took control harmoniously, exactly as Gabriel had predicted. It worked! Patricia shouted, unable to contain herself. William, it worked! The room exploded in applause. Engineers who had spent sleepless nights for months hugged each other. William knelt again beside Gabriel, who watched everything with wide eyes of admiration. Gabriel, do you have any idea what you just did? The boy shook his head, still processing the emotion around him. You saved our company. You saved thousands of jobs. And more importantly, you'll save lives of people who will fly in planes with this technology. Gabriel smiled, that pure and genuine smile that only children possess. Jesus must be happy. Dad always said he gets happy when we use our gifts to help people. William couldn't contain himself anymore. Tears flowed freely down his face as he hugged the boy. Gabriel, I want to make you a proposal. What kind of proposal? I want you to come live with me and my wife. I want to give you the best education money can buy. I want you to have everything you deserve. Gabriel pulled back slightly, confused. But I don't have anything to give in return. You have something much more valuable than money. William smiled through his tears. You have a gift from God, and I want to help you develop it. The boy looked around the room at all those important adults who watched him with respect and admiration. For the first time in 3 years, since his mother had abandoned him at the orphanage door with just a small suitcase and a lying promise to return, Gabriel felt truly valued. Can I think about it? He asked shyly. Of course you can, William smiled. But first, how about we have lunch together? I know a place that makes the best burgers in Detroit. As they walked toward the elevator, Gabriel held William's big hand with his little one. Mr. William? Yes. Do you think my parents would be proud of me? William stopped in the middle of the corridor, knelt once more, and looked directly into the boy's eyes. I'm absolutely certain they would, Gabriel. I'm certain that wherever they are, they're overflowing with pride. Gabriel nodded confidently and touched his small wooden cross again. Dad told me Jesus always has a plan. I think this was his plan for today. William smiled, feeling his heart fill with a sensation he had forgotten existed since he himself was a child. Pure and genuine hope. I think you're right, son. I think you're right. And as they descended in the glass elevator, watching the city of Detroit stretch infinitely below them, neither William nor Gabriel knew that this would be just the first of many adventures awaiting them. That this would be just the first time that a child's innocent faith would forever change the lives of powerful people, and that, across town, in dark offices and envious hearts, other people had noticed what had happened at Aerotech that day. People who would not be satisfied seeing a poor boy receive everything they believed they deserved for themselves. But for now, as William took Gabriel to discover the world that would soon be his by right, only joy mattered. The joy of an orphan boy who discovered that his gifts truly had value, and the joy of a powerful man who rediscovered that true wealth wasn't in his bank accounts, but in the opportunity to make a difference in the life of a special child. 3 weeks had passed since that life-changing afternoon at Aerotech Industries. Gabriel awakened in the softest bed he had ever slept in a room larger than the entire shared dormitory at St. Mary's Children's Home. The silk curtains allowed golden rays of morning sunlight to dance across walls painted sky blue, his favorite color William had discovered after a conversation about clouds and heavens. The boy sat on the edge of the bed, his bare feet touching the plush carpet, still adjusting to the quiet. At the orphanage, he woke every day to crying babies, loud conversations from caregivers, and the constant noise of 23 children sharing the same space. Here, in the Thompson mansion in Birmingham Hills, only distant birdsong broke the morning peace. He carefully dressed in his new St. Andrew's Academy uniform, navy pants, pristine white shirt, a tie he still struggled to knot correctly. Each piece cost more money than he had ever seen in his entire life, but William insisted, "You deserve the finest, son." Son. The word still warmed his heart every time William spoke it. Gabriel descended the marble staircase, sliding his hand along the polished banister. In the dining room, he found William reading technical reports over coffee, glasses perched on his nose, wearing that concentrated expression Gabriel had learned to recognize. "Good morning, Papa William," Gabriel said softly. He still hesitated using Papa, but William always beamed when he heard it. "Good morning, my boy." William opened his arms, and Gabriel rushed to receive the morning embrace that had become their ritual. "Sleep well?" "I did. I dreamed I was piloting the Falcon X. We flew above the clouds and I waved to my daddy in heaven." William felt his throat tighten. In their 3 weeks together, every innocent word from Gabriel touched some deep fiber in his heart. "I'm sure he waved back, son." During breakfast, served by Mrs. Dorothy, the housekeeper who already treated Gabriel like her own grandson, William watched in amazement how the boy absorbed information from everything around him. Gabriel studied the texture of the toast, asked about the coffee roasting process, wanted to understand why sugar dissolved faster in hot liquids. "Papa William, may I ask something?" "Always, Gabriel." "Why doesn't Mr. Michael like me?" William paused with his cup halfway to his lips. Michael Richardson, his vice president of engineering for 12 years, had shown obvious discomfort with Gabriel's presence at the company. "What makes you think that?" "Yesterday, when I went to the lab with you, he stared at me like I was some strange creature, and when I explained the landing system modification, he said that any trained monkey could have had the same idea." William's blood boiled, but he kept his voice calm. "Some people take time accepting changes, Gabriel. Michael has worked with me for many years, and perhaps feels uncomfortable with new situations." Gabriel nodded, thoughtfully chewing his jam-covered toast. "Dad taught me that Jesus also faced people who didn't like him. He said we should love them anyway. Your father was a wise man." "Yes, he was. He worked in an auto repair shop, but knew a lot about planes. At night he showed me the stars and said that someday I would fly higher than them." William swallowed hard. Every fragment of Gabriel's story revealed a simple man, but profoundly loving, who had planted extraordinary seeds in his son's mind before departing too soon. The driver arrived to take them. William made a point of personally driving Gabriel to school every morning, transforming the journey into a special moment between them. In the car, Gabriel pressed his nose against the window, watching the city wake up. "Papa William, when I grow up and become a real engineer, can I build planes to take poor children to see the world?" "You absolutely can, son. You absolutely can." At St. Andrew's Academy, one of Detroit's most prestigious institutions, Gabriel stepped out of the black Mercedes under curious stares from other students and parents. Some whispered. Everyone knew the story of the genius boy who saved William Thompson's company. "Behave well, study hard, and remember, you're here because you belong," William said, embracing Gabriel. "Thank you for believing in me," Gabriel replied, adjusting his new backpack, now a premium leather one, no longer the tape-mended bag he brought from the orphanage. Watching his adopted son enter the school, William felt a mixture of pride and concern. Gabriel was brilliant, but still a traumatized child trying to adapt to a completely new world. At Aerotech, William arrived to find Michael Richardson waiting in his office, expression tense and formal. "We need to talk," Michael said without preamble. About this unsustainable situation you've created with this boy." William sat slowly behind his desk, controlling his irritation. "Clarify your concern, Michael." "William, you've lost your sense of reality. You're treating a 9-year-old child as if he were a senior engineer. Yesterday you consulted him about Sparrow project modifications before consulting me. I am your vice president, and Gabriel is responsible for the solution that saved our company. It was luck. A child made a guess that coincidentally worked. That doesn't make him an expert." William stood, his voice dangerously calm. "Michael, Gabriel identified and solved a problem that you and your entire team couldn't resolve in 2 years. That wasn't luck. You're being manipulated by a clever child who found an opportunity to escape poverty. In a few months, when the novelty wears off, you'll see you made a mistake. The only mistake I see here is your inability to recognize exceptional talent because of your wounded pride." Michael stood abruptly. "My pride? William, I built this company alongside you. I worked 70-hour weeks for years to get where we are. And now you replace my opinion with that of a child who lived in an orphanage a month ago. Nobody is being replaced, Michael. But if you continue treating Gabriel with disrespect, then yes, there will be changes in the company structure." The vice president stormed out, slamming the door, leaving William with an uneasy feeling in his chest. He had known Michael for 12 years, a competent man, but also extremely ambitious and possessive regarding his position in the company. At 2 o'clock, William's phone rang. On the other end, a tense female voice. "Mr. Thompson, this is Sarah from St. Andrew's Academy office. You need to come pick up Gabriel immediately." William felt his blood freeze. "What happened? Is he hurt?" "Not physically, but there was an incident. You should come right away." 15 minutes later, William was in the principal's office, where he found Gabriel sitting in a chair too large for him, staring at the floor, a red mark on his left cheek. "What happened?" William knelt beside the chair, examining the boy's face. Principal Margaret Collins sighed heavily. "There was an altercation during recess. Gabriel and Robert Hayes, son of Congressman Hayes, got into a discussion. A discussion that left a mark on my son's face." Gabriel finally raised his eyes, which glistened with unshed tears. He said, "I was a fake. That poor people don't have brains for engineering. That you would throw me away when you discovered I'm stupid." William's heart shattered. "And what did you do?" "I said Jesus gave me a good brain and that Daddy always believed in me. Then he pushed me and said my father was a failure just like me. So I fought back." "Gabriel punched Robert in the nose," the principal completed. "Robert responded with a slap to his face." William felt a contradictory mixture of pride and worry. And now, normally, it would be suspension for both. But considering Gabriel is adjusting to a new situation and Robert clearly provoked it, I want to speak with Robert's parents. Mr. Thompson, perhaps it's better to let this go. Congressman Hayes can create complications. Let him try. William stood, picking up Gabriel despite the boy's timid protest that he was too big. "Nobody will humiliate my son with impunity." On the way home, Gabriel broke the silence. "Papa William, was I wrong to hit Robert?" William drove in silence for several seconds before answering. "Violence is never the best solution, Gabriel, but defending your dignity and your father's memory, I understand that perfectly. He said very ugly things about Daddy, and your father would be proud to see how you defended him. But next time, try using your intelligence instead of your fists, okay? Smart words hurt more than punches on ignorant people." Gabriel smiled for the first time since the incident. "I'll remember that." That night, during dinner, Gabriel was quieter than usual. William noticed the boy was playing with his food instead of eating. "What are you thinking about, son?" "Papa, William, what happens if the important people at school don't want me studying there? What if they decide children like me shouldn't stay with rich children?" The question hit William like a punch to the stomach. "Why are you worried about that?" "Because it happened before. At the first orphanage where I stayed, there was a wealthy family interested in adopting me. But when they discovered I liked reading about mathematics more than playing soccer, they said I was too intense for a normal child." William felt silent fury burn in his chest. "Gabriel, look at me!" The boy raised his brown eyes, still vulnerable, despite the brilliant intelligence they carried. "You're not going anywhere. You're my son now, and nobody, no congressman, no school, no powerful family, will take you from me or take me from you." "Understood." Gabriel nodded, but William perceived that the wounds of abandonment were too deep to be healed with words, however sincere. "You know what we're doing tomorrow?" William smiled, changing the tone. "We're visiting Boeing's factory in Seattle. They want to meet you personally and show how your solution is being implemented in real aircraft." Gabriel's eyes lit up like stars. "Can I see planes being built?" "You can. And maybe, if you behave well, they'll let you sit in the cockpit of a corporate jet." Gabriel practically jumped from his chair, sadness momentarily forgotten. "Really? Can I really?" "You really can, my little genius. You really can." Later that night, after Gabriel fell asleep, William received an unexpected call. It was Patricia Williams, his chief engineer, and she sounded worried. "William, I need to tell you something. Today I received a strange visit at the office." "What kind of visit?" "Two men identified themselves as being from Child Protective Services. They asked questions about Gabriel, whether he was being intellectually exploited, whether you were forcing him to work, whether the adoption was being done through proper legal channels." William felt a chill run down his spine. "What did you say?" "The truth, of course. That Gabriel is a happy, well-cared-for child, that his participation in the company is spontaneous and playful. But they seem to be looking for problems, William, as if someone had guided them on what to ask. Someone reported me to Child Protective Services. That's what it seems like. They mentioned receiving an anonymous tip about possible exploitation of a minor. William, you need to be prepared. If someone powerful is behind this." William hung up with trembling hands of rage. He climbed the stairs quietly and peeked at Gabriel, sleeping peacefully, hugging the small wooden cross that had belonged to his biological father. "I will protect you," he whispered in the dark, "no matter who tries to separate us." But deep in his heart, William knew the war was just beginning, and that there were powerful people willing to destroy an orphan child's happiness to protect their own interests. Across town, in a penthouse apartment in Grosse Pointe, Michael Richardson hung up the phone after a long, calculated conversation. "It's done," he told the woman organizing papers on a mahogany desk. "Child Protective Services has already begun the investigation. In a few weeks, William's circus with the prodigy boy will come to an end. And then I take control of the company I helped build. William has lost focus, being manipulated by a child. It's time for someone more stable to make the decisions." Michael didn't know that at that exact moment, Gabriel had awakened from a nightmare and gone downstairs for water. And that, passing by the library in the Thompson mansion, he heard William talking on the phone with lawyers about legal protection and accelerated adoption process. The 9-year-old boy, who had already lost everything once, instinctively understood he was about to lose everything again. And for the first time since arriving at that house, Gabriel Thompson wondered if God really never abandoned orphans, or if he just took longer to arrive in some cases. Rain hammered against William's office windows with the violence typical of Detroit March storms. He paced back and forth across the room, phone pressed to his ear, while listening to his attorney, Dr. Richard Martinez, explain the gravity of the situation. "William, the complaint is more serious than we imagined," the tense voice said from the other end. "They allege you're using Gabriel as corporate propaganda, exposing a vulnerable child for commercial benefit. There are also accusations that he's being deprived of a normal childhood." William stopped in front of the window, watching the grey city under the storm. "This is absurd, Richard. Gabriel is the happiest child I've ever seen. He loves participating in the projects." "I know that. You know that. But Child Protective Services has to investigate all complaints. And whoever made this complaint knows the legal system very well. Included photographs of Gabriel in the laboratory, copies of newspaper articles about him, even a psychological analysis alleging signs of excessive pressure to perform." Psychological analysis? Where did they get that? Apparently, someone hired a psychologist to observe Gabriel at school and prepare a report. It's all very well orchestrated, William. We're dealing with someone who has resources and legal knowledge. William closed his eyes, feeling the weight of responsibility. What do I need to do? First, Gabriel can't visit Aerotech anymore until the investigation ends. Second, you'll need independent psychological evaluation. Third, the adoption process will be temporarily suspended. Suspended? William's voice trembled. "Richard, if Gabriel discovers he could be taken from me..." "Calm down, William. It's just a precaution. But you need to tell him about the investigation before he hears it from another source." At that moment, Gabriel entered the office quietly, still wearing his school uniform, soaked. He had walked from school to the company in the rain, completely ignoring the driver waiting for him. "Papa William." The boy's voice came out small, almost a whisper. "I need to talk to you." William quickly ended the call and knelt before Gabriel, grabbing a towel from the side table to dry his wet hair. "What happened, son? Why didn't you go with Mr. Anthony?" Gabriel hugged William with desperate force, burying his face in his chest. "They're going to take me away, aren't they?" William's heart nearly stopped. "Who told you that?" "The principal called me to her office today. There were 2 women there. They said they were social workers. They asked a bunch of strange questions about how you treat me, if you force me to study mathematics, if I have time to play." Gabriel pulled back slightly, his brown eyes filled with tears. "One of them asked if I knew that child exploitation was a crime." William felt fierce rage burn in his chest, but kept his voice calm. "Gabriel, look at me." The boy raised his face, trying to hold back tears. "Are you happy here with me? Happier than I've ever been in my whole life? Do I force you to do anything you don't want to?" "Never. You always ask if I want to help with the projects." "Then don't worry. Some people who don't know us are asking questions, but this will pass. You're not going anywhere." Gabriel nodded, but William could see fear still present in his eyes, the fear of a child who had already lost everything once and knew how life could change instantly. "Can I keep coming to the company?" Gabriel asked hopefully. William hesitated, hating having to lie, but knowing the truth would be devastating. "For a few days, maybe it's better if you concentrate on your studies. How about we set up a laboratory at home? We can build a workshop in the basement." Gabriel's face lit up slightly. "With a real workbench? And microscope? With everything you need." But during dinner, Gabriel barely touched his food. He pushed rice from one side of the plate to the other, lost in thoughts that seemed too heavy for a 9-year-old mind. "Gabriel, you need to eat," William said gently. "Papa William, can I ask a difficult question?" "You always can." Gabriel took a deep breath, as if preparing for something painful. "If they discover I'm a problem for you, would you return me to the orphanage?" The question struck William like lightning. He immediately got up from his chair and went to Gabriel, picking him up despite the boy's protests. "Gabriel Thompson," he said, using the full name the boy would officially adopt. "You will never, ever, under any circumstances, be a problem for me. You're the best thing that happened in my life, and even if the whole world turned against us, I would never, never abandon you. Understood?" Gabriel clung to William's neck, finally letting the tears fall. "I'm so scared of going back there. At the orphanage at night, I stayed awake imagining what it would be like to have a real father. Now that I have one, I don't want to lose him." William also cried, holding the boy as if he could protect him from all the world's evils just with the strength of his embrace. "You won't lose him, son. I promise." Later that night, after Gabriel fell asleep, William received an unexpected call. It was Patricia Williams, and she sounded agitated. "William, I discovered who's behind the complaint." "Who?" "Michael. I found evidence on his computer, emails to a law firm specializing in child advocacy, bank transfers to a private investigation company. He orchestrated everything." William felt his blood boil. "Do I have proof?" "Not legal proof. I'd need a court order to officially access this data, but I have unofficial copies that clearly show his involvement." "Where is Michael now?" "Left early today. Said he was going to an external meeting, but one of the secretaries saw him in the parking lot making a phone call. She heard him say, 'The operation is underway. Soon I'll have total control of the company.'" William hung up and immediately called Dr. Richard. "I discovered who's behind the complaint. I need your help gathering admissible evidence." The next morning, Gabriel woke with a high fever. William called the family doctor, Dr. Paul Benedict, who examined the boy carefully. "It's stress," the doctor diagnosed privately. "Anxiety is manifesting physically. Gabriel is somatizing his worries." "He's only 9 years old," William said, watching Gabriel sleep restlessly in bed. "Children who've experienced abandonment trauma develop heightened sensitivity to any sign of rejection. For Gabriel, this investigation represents the threat of losing again everything he loves." William spent the entire day caring for Gabriel, placing cool compresses on his forehead, reading stories, singing lullabies he didn't even know he knew. When Gabriel woke in delirium, he murmured things like, "Don't let me go, and promise you'll come find me." At 3 in the afternoon, 2 social workers arrived at the house for an unscheduled inspection. William received them in the living room, trying to stay calm while they examined each room of the mansion with critical eyes. "The child's room is excessively luxurious," commented one of them, a thin woman with glasses. "This could create unrealistic expectations about living standards." "Gabriel deserves the best I can offer," William replied dryly. "And where is he now?" "Sick in bed, with fever." The 2 women exchanged meaningful looks. "Coincidentally sick on the day of our visit." William controlled the urge to explode. "You can speak with the doctor who examined him this morning. They insisted on seeing Gabriel, even with him being feverish." William took them to the bedroom, where they found the boy awake but clearly weakened. "Hi, Gabriel," said the younger social worker, forcing a smile. "How are you feeling?" "With headache," Gabriel answered honestly, "and scared." "Scared of what?" Gabriel looked at William, then back at the woman. "Scared of you taking me away from Papa, William." "Nobody will take you anywhere if you're well cared for," she replied. "But I need you to tell me, do you feel pressured to study very difficult things?" Gabriel frowned, confused. "Pressured? I like studying. Mathematics is fun. But don't you think you should be playing with normal toys instead of working with airplanes?" "Airplanes are my favorite toys. Papa William always asks if I want to help, never forces me." The social worker made notes on her clipboard. "And do you have friends your age?" Gabriel hesitated. "At school, some boys don't like me much. They say I'm weird for liking numbers." William saw the 2 women exchange another meaningful look, as if Gabriel had confirmed some suspicion. After they left, William returned to Gabriel's room and found the boy crying silently. "They're going to take me, aren't they?" Gabriel asked with a choked voice. William lay in bed beside the boy, pulling him into a protective embrace. "Gabriel, I need to tell you something important." The boy stiffened, preparing for bad news. "A man who works with me, who's angry because you're smarter than him, is trying to cause problems for us. He lied to these people, said things that aren't true. Mr. Michael. William was surprised. How do you know? He always looks at me with anger. And yesterday when I left school, I saw him talking to a man in a suit near the gate. He pointed at me, and the man took pictures. William felt cold fury spread through his chest. Gabriel, I'm going to solve this. But I need you to be very brave for a few days. Can you do that for me? Gabriel nodded, though he still looked scared. Papa William, if they take me, will you look for me? Son, William held the boy's small face in his hands. I would move mountains to find you. I'd fight the whole world to bring you back. Do you believe me? I believe you. Then sleep peacefully. Papa is here to protect you. That night, while Gabriel finally slept without fever, William made a call to an old college friend, Charles Morrison, now a judge on the Michigan Court of Appeals. Charles, I need a favor, a big favor. Go ahead, William. William told the entire situation from Michael's conspiracy to the threats against the adoption process. Charles listened in silence before responding. William, what you're telling me is very serious. If there really is evidence of false accusations and conspiracy, I have evidence, Charles, and I have witnesses. Then let's act quickly. But you need to be prepared. If we fail, you could lose Gabriel permanently. The judicial system doesn't like being challenged. Charles, this boy is my son. The risk doesn't matter. All right. I'll prepare a petition for first thing tomorrow morning. And William? Yes? Pray we have sufficient evidence, because if Michael really has political backing behind him, this will be the fight of your life. William hung up the phone and went upstairs to Gabriel's room. He found the boy awake, looking out the window at the stars. Can't sleep? William asked, sitting on the edge of the bed. I'm talking to Daddy, Gabriel replied simply, touching the small cross on his neck. Asking him to help me stay with you. William swallowed hard. And what is he saying? Gabriel smiled for the first time in 2 days. That sometimes God allows storms to show how much people truly love each other. And that after the storm, the sky is always more beautiful. William kissed Gabriel's forehead, marveled by the wisdom that child carried. Your father was truly a very wise man. Yes, he was. And he told me you're a real father now, that a father's heart isn't about blood, it's about love. As Gabriel finally fell asleep, William remained awake, planning every move in the battle that was coming. Because tomorrow, he wouldn't just be fighting for his company or his reputation. He would be fighting for the right to be father to a child who had already lost everything once and who deserved to finally know what unconditional love was. And it didn't matter who was on the other side of this war. William Thompson was willing to sacrifice everything to protect his little genius. The storm outside was beginning to calm, but the real storm was just beginning. Friday morning dawned heavy with electric tension that seemed to contaminate Detroit's air. William awakened at 5 after a sleepless night and found Gabriel already awake in the kitchen, sitting at the table with a half-empty glass of milk and a thoughtful expression. Good morning, son. How do you feel today? Gabriel raised his eyes, and William noticed a new determination in them, something that hadn't been there in the previous days. Better, Papa William. I had an idea during the night. What kind of idea? An idea to prove that the bad people are lying about us. Before William could ask for details, his phone rang. It was Dr. Richard, and his voice carried urgency. William, we have bigger problems. The hearing has been scheduled for today at 2 p.m., and there's more. Michael has gained support from 3 state representatives who are applying political pressure. They're claiming your exploitation of Gabriel could set a dangerous precedent for other companies to use children. William closed his eyes, feeling the weight of injustice. Richard, this is insane. Gabriel isn't exploited. I know, you know, but they've created a convincing narrative. And there's more. The press will be present. Michael leaked the story to 3 different newspapers. When William hung up, Gabriel approached and held his hand with his small fingers. Papa William, trust me today, okay? I have a plan. Gabriel, this isn't child's play. These are powerful people trying to separate us. I know. But Jesus gave me this brain for some reason, didn't he? Maybe it's for this moment. At 10 a.m., an emergency call came to Aerotech. Patricia answered, pale with concern. William, we have a crisis. The Falcon X prototype that was supposed to be presented to the international delegation this afternoon has a critical failure in the navigation system. If we don't solve it by 2 o'clock, we lose the most important export contract in the company's history. William felt the world collapse. Not only was he fighting to keep Gabriel, but now he also faced the possible bankruptcy of everything he had built. What type of failure? The navigation system is crashing during high-speed maneuvers. 3 of our best engineers have been trying to solve it since last night. Nobody can identify the problem. Gabriel, who was listening to everything beside William, suddenly brightened. Papa, can I see the technical data? Gabriel, you can't enter the company, remember? The investigation. But you can bring the papers here, can't you? It's not against the law for me to look at papers at home. William hesitated, but the situation's urgency spoke louder. Patricia, bring all the technical data here to the house. Now. 30 minutes later, the Thompson Mansion's dining table was covered with technical reports, circuit diagrams, and computer code printouts. Gabriel studied everything with the concentration of a surgeon, his 9-year-old mind processing information that challenged experienced engineers. Here, he said suddenly, pointing to a specific line in the code. The problem is in the synchronization between the GPS and the inertial system. When the plane flies too fast, the two systems start disagreeing about where they are. Patricia, who had arrived with James and 2 other engineers, looked where Gabriel was pointing. My God, it's true. How didn't we see this? Because you were looking for a big problem, Gabriel explained patiently. But sometimes small problems cause bigger damage. It's like when a pebble in your shoe makes you limp. In 20 minutes, Gabriel had not only identified the problem, but also sketched the solution, a simple correction algorithm that would make the two systems talk better with each other. Gabriel, James was clearly emotional, you just saved our company. Again. But the joy was interrupted by aggressive knocking at the door. William opened it to find 2 social workers, accompanied by 2 police officers and Michael Richardson. William Thompson, said one of the social workers with an official voice. We're here to escort Gabriel Thompson to temporary shelter while the child exploitation investigation proceeds. Gabriel hid behind William, his eyes wide with terror. You don't have authorization for this, William protested. We do, Michael spoke for the first time, showing a document. Court order issued an hour ago, based on evidence of continued intellectual exploitation. William looked at the paper and felt his blood freeze. It was a legitimate order, signed by a judge who had clearly been influenced by political pressure. Gabriel isn't going anywhere, William said, placing the boy behind him. Mr. Thompson, one of the officers spoke firmly but without hostility. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. It's just temporary. Gabriel stepped forward, his voice trembling but determined. Can I speak before you take me? Everyone looked at the boy surprised. Gabriel, you don't need to, William began. I do, Papa. Gabriel took a deep breath, as if preparing for the most important speech of his life. Mr. Michael, why are you doing this to me? Michael seemed uncomfortable with the direct question. Child, you don't understand adult matters. I do understand. I understand that you worked for a long time at Papa William's company and got angry when I helped solve the airplane problems. I understand that you think you deserved more recognition. The room fell into absolute silence. Gabriel, William murmured, impressed by the boy's perception. But Mr. Michael, Gabriel continued, his tears beginning to fall. I didn't want to take anything from you. I just wanted to help. And now, because of your anger, I'm losing my papa again. Michael avoided the boy's gaze, but Gabriel didn't stop. Do you have children? I do, Michael replied reluctantly. "And if someone tried to take your children from you just out of anger, how would you feel?" For the first time, Michael seemed genuinely shaken, but maintained his facade. "This is different. Your children aren't orphans." Gabriel completed the sentence Michael didn't have courage to finish. "It's true, I am an orphan. My daddy died when I was little, and my mama abandoned me. But you know what I learned? Family isn't just blood. Family is love." Gabriel's tears fell freely now, but his voice remained firm. "Papa William truly loves me. He never forced me to do anything, never treated me like I was strange for liking mathematics. He made me feel special, not weird." One of the social workers discreetly wiped her own eyes. "And now," Gabriel continued, "because of lies, I'm going to lose the only person who made me feel like I had value. I'm going back to the orphanage, where I stay awake at night imagining what it would be like to have a real father, having already had one, and you took him from me." Gabriel turned to William, climbing on a chair to get taller and hug him properly. "Papa William, thank you for showing me what it's like to be loved. Even if I have to go away, I'll always remember that for a few months I had a real father." William was crying openly now, holding Gabriel as if he could protect him from the world just with the strength of his embrace. "You will always be my son, Gabriel. Always." It was at that moment that Patricia stepped forward, holding the technical papers Gabriel had just solved. "Excuse me," she said, addressing the social workers. "Did you see what just happened here?" "What do you mean?" asked one of them. "In the last 30 minutes, while you were on your way to protect this child from exploitation, Gabriel just solved alone a technical problem that will save hundreds of jobs and millions of dollars, not because he was forced, but because he saw people needing help." Patricia showed the calculations Gabriel had made. "This here is genius-level work. And it wasn't done under pressure or exploitation. It was done out of love. Love for the family he found. Love for the company that became his second home." James joined Patricia. "I have 3 children, and I can guarantee this boy isn't being exploited. He's being loved and nurtured the way every child should be." Michael, seeing the situation escaping his control, tried to regain authority. "This doesn't change the fact that there's a court order. Feelings don't nullify the law." That's when Gabriel had his last brilliant idea. "Officer," he said, addressing the more sympathetic policeman, "can you give me 5 minutes on the computer before you take me?" "Gabriel, no," William protested. "Trust me, Papa." The officer, visibly moved by the situation, nodded. 5 minutes. Gabriel went to the laptop in the living room and began typing rapidly. In a few minutes, he had accessed Aerotech's email system, not illegally, but using the password William had given him to play with simulators. "Done," Gabriel said, turning the screen for everyone to see. "Here are Mr. Michael's emails to the law firm, and here are the bank transfers to hire private investigators to spy on me at school." The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Michael paled completely. "How did you—" "You forgot to delete the emails from the sent folder," Gabriel explained simply, "and you left the bank screen open on your computer yesterday when you left for lunch. I saw it when I passed by your office with Papa William." One of the social workers took the laptop and examined the evidence. Her face gradually transformed into an expression of growing indignation. This is a documented conspiracy against a child," she murmured, scanning the messages. "Mr. Richardson, did you orchestrate a false complaint?" Michael tried to deny, but the evidence was irrefutable. In the emails, he openly discussed his strategy to remove the boy from the company and regain control of the situation. "This completely changes the picture," said the other social worker. "If the complaint was made in bad faith—" "It was," Gabriel said sadly, "and all because I tried to help. I just wanted planes to be safe for people to fly in." The older officer addressed Michael with a severe voice. "Sir, are you aware that false reporting is a crime, especially involving a child?" Michael, realizing he was cornered, exploded. You don't understand. I built this company. I worked day and night for years, and then this street child appears and in one afternoon gets all the credit for my work." "Your work?" Gabriel asked innocently. "But Mr. Michael, you yourself said you tried to solve the airplane problem for 2 years and couldn't. I didn't take anything from you. I just offered a new idea." The simplicity and sincerity of Gabriel's response made Michael's pettiness even more evident. "Enough," William said, finally recovering his voice. "Michael, you're fired. Not just from the company, but from my life. How could you try to destroy an innocent child?" "William, you can't." "I can, and I'm doing it." "Security!" William called, and 2 company security guards who had arrived with Patricia stepped forward. "Escort Mr. Richardson off my property, now!" While Michael was led away, protesting and threatening, the social workers huddled in quick consultation. "Mr. Thompson," said the older one, "in light of this new evidence, and considering the child's clearly demonstrated well-being, the removal order is suspended. But we'll need a complete psychological evaluation of Gabriel to definitively close the case." Gabriel ran to William, who picked him up, both crying with relief. "It's over, son. It's over." "Papa William," Gabriel whispered in his ear, "Jesus really doesn't abandon orphans, does he?" "No, my son, never abandons." At that moment, William's phone rang. It was Patricia, who had quickly returned to the company. "William, you need to turn on the TV, now." William turned on the device and found a live press conference. On the screen, 3 state representatives, the same ones who had supported Michael, were making statements about childhood protection and regulation of using minors in corporate activities. "As you can see," one of them was saying, "we are taking firm measures to prevent companies from exploiting vulnerable children for commercial purposes." Gabriel watched for a few seconds, then looked at William with determination in his eyes. "Papa, can we go to the company now? I think these gentlemen need to know the truth." William smiled, recognizing the special gleam in his son's eyes, the one that appeared whenever Gabriel was about to surprise the world again. "You bet we can, son. You bet we can." As they headed to Aerotech, Gabriel held William's hand firmly, preparing for what would be his biggest test yet, facing not just one envious man, but an entire political system that had tried to use him as a pawn in power games. But this time, he wouldn't be alone. He would have by his side not just the man he had chosen as father, but also the truth. And Gabriel had learned that truth, in the right hands, was the most powerful weapon in the world. The Michigan State Capitol Auditorium was packed beyond capacity. Journalists from across the nation, aerospace industry representatives, educators, politicians, and curious onlookers squeezed together to witness what had become America's most talked-about case, the public hearing on the genius child and the limits of exceptional education. Gabriel walked down the center aisle, holding William's hand firmly, his small steps echoing in the tense silence of the environment. He wore his finest suit, navy blue, like the skies he so loved, and carried on his chest his small wooden cross, now polished and gleaming like a beacon of hope. In the front rows sat the 3 representatives who had orchestrated this hearing. Representative David Miller, rapporteur of the Committee for Children's Rights Defense, Representative Sandra Hayes, known for her campaigns against child exploitation, and Representative Charles Morgan, specialist in educational legislation. On the other side, Patricia Williams, James Mitchell, and the entire Aerotech team showed silent support. In the upper galleries, blue T-shirts with the phrase "Genius for Good" identified dozens of children from St. Mary's Home and other institutions who had received special authorization to attend. "Papa William," Gabriel whispered as they settled at the table designated for the defendants of the situation, "I'm nervous. So am I, son. But remember, you did nothing wrong. Just be yourself." Representative Miller banged his gavel, beginning the session. His voice reverberated through the sound system with pompous authority. We are here today to analyze a case that exposes fundamental questions about the limits of childhood education and protection of minors against intellectual exploitation. He looked directly at Gabriel. This boy, Gabriel Thompson, has become a symbol of a national debate about how far we can demand performance from a child. Gabriel straightened his back in the chair too tall for him, his feet swinging slightly in the air. "Master Gabriel," the representative continued, "do you understand why we're all here today?" Gabriel nodded solemnly. "Yes, sir. Because some people think Papa William is hurting me by letting me study things I like." A murmur ran through the auditorium. Gabriel's response's simplicity contrasted dramatically with the situation's political complexity. "And do you think you're being hurt?" asked Representative Sandra, leaning forward with forced maternal expression. Gabriel thought carefully before responding, the way William had taught him. "Representative Sandra, may I ask a question first?" "You may, of course. Do you have children?" "I have two." "And if your children really liked drawing, would you let them draw a lot?" "Well, yes, of course." "And if they liked playing piano?" "I would let them too." Gabriel smiled with the genuine innocence of a child making a discovery. "Then why can't I like mathematics and airplanes? Is it different from drawing and playing piano?" The question struck the debate's center with surgical precision. Sandra exchanged uncomfortable looks with her colleagues. "The issue, Gabriel," Representative Morgan intervened, "is that advanced mathematics and aeronautical engineering can be excessive pressure for a 9-year-old mind." "But, sir," Gabriel replied politely, "I don't find it pressure, I find it fun. It's like when you watch football on Sunday. Do you feel pressured or do you have fun?" "I have fun, but then it's the same. I have fun with numbers. And when I solve a difficult problem, I get happy just like when my team scores a goal." Muffled laughter began emerging from the galleries. Gabriel was, without realizing it, disarming complex political arguments with irrefutable childish logic. "Gabriel," Representative Sandra tried a different approach, "but don't you miss playing with other boys your age? Playing video games? Running in the park?" Gabriel's eyes filled with momentary sadness. "Ma'am, may I tell a story?" "You may, child." Gabriel took a deep breath, unconsciously touching his cross. "Before living with Papa William, I stayed at St. Mary's Children's Home. There were many children there, and we played together, yes. But at night, when everyone slept, I stayed awake looking at the stars through the window." The auditorium was in absolute silence. "I imagined my daddy in heaven watching me and promised him I would use the brain Jesus gave me to help people. Because Daddy always said our gifts aren't just ours, they're to make the world better." Several people in the audience discreetly wiped their eyes. "So when I met Papa William and he let me help with airplanes, it wasn't work. It was like fulfilling a promise to my real father in heaven." William placed his hand on Gabriel's shoulder, too emotional to speak. "And now," Gabriel continued, his voice getting firmer, "I have two papas protecting me, one in heaven and one here on earth. Both taught me that real love isn't controlling what we do. It's supporting us in what we are." Representative Sandra was visibly shaken. "Gabriel, but what if you want to change your mind tomorrow? What if you decide you don't like mathematics anymore?" Gabriel smiled with the surprising wisdom that sometimes emerged from his innocence. "Then Papa William will support me too, because he loves me, not just for what I can do, but for who I am." William finally found his voice. "May I speak, Your Excellencies?" Representative Miller nodded permission. William stood, placing a protective hand on Gabriel's shoulder. "Honorable representatives, I understand your concern. As a society, we must protect our children. But protection cannot mean limitation of potential." He looked directly at the TV cameras. "Gabriel isn't exploited in my company. He is celebrated. He isn't forced to perform. He is encouraged to explore. He isn't treated as an adult prematurely. He is loved as the extraordinary child he is." "Mr. Thompson," Representative Morgan interrupted. But how do we ensure other companies won't use this precedent to exploit minors? Before William could answer, Gabriel stood up on his chair, asking to speak. His voice, even high and childish, cut through the air with impressive moral authority. Sir, may I explain the difference? You may, Gabriel. When a child is exploited, they're forced to do things they don't want, aren't cared for properly, and people get rich using them. When a child is loved, they do what they like, are always protected, and use their gifts to help others. Gabriel pointed to William. Papa William didn't get rich because of me. He was already rich. He adopted me because he loves me, not because I'm useful. The boy then pointed to the galleries where the other children sat. And you know what else? Papa William is building special schools for children like me, children who think differently. So no child who loves mathematics or science feels weird. A wave of spontaneous applause began in the galleries and spread throughout the auditorium. Several adults were clearly moved. When the noise diminished, Gabriel continued, now speaking directly to the cameras like a small statesman. I want to say something to all the children watching. If you're different, if you like things others think are strange, that's not bad. God made each person special for something. And there's always someone who will love you for who you are, not what you do. Tears flowed freely down many faces present, including some representatives. And to the adults, Gabriel continued with the seriousness of a young philosopher, please don't be afraid of intelligent children. Let's be afraid of wasting talent instead. Let's be afraid of making special children feel broken. Representative Miller discreetly wiped his eyes before speaking. Gabriel, you've given us much to think about today. May I say one more thing, sir? Of course. Gabriel climbed down from his chair and walked to the auditorium's center, his small figure radiating a presence that defied his age. I was a sad boy at the orphanage. I had a good brain, but thought that made me weird. I thought I'd never have a family because I was too different. His voice became choked with emotion. But then God sent Papa William into my life. And he taught me that being different means being special, that my intelligence is a gift, not a problem. Gabriel turned to William, extending his arms. William immediately left the table and knelt to receive his son's embrace. Papa William gave me something worth more than money. He gave me unconditional love. He gave me family. He gave me the right to be who I am without shame. Father and son embraced in the center of that auditorium, under the flashes of dozens of cameras, but completely oblivious to the outside world. In that moment, only they existed, and the love that united them. And now, Gabriel said, still hugging William but speaking loud enough for everyone to hear, I want to use my gifts to help other orphan children find families that love them for who they are. Because every child deserves to have someone who believes in them. The auditorium exploded in standing ovation. Even the representatives stood, visibly moved. The children in the galleries shouted, Gabriel, Gabriel, with pure admiration. When the emotion finally calmed, Representative Miller banged his gavel solemnly. After hearing everything presented today, and especially after hearing the very child who is at the center of this issue, I declare this case closed. There is no exploitation here. There is only paternal love and development of exceptional talent. He looked directly at Gabriel. Young man, you taught us today that child protection doesn't mean limiting potential, but ensuring children are loved and supported in their unique gifts. 3 months later, in an intimate ceremony at the Detroit courthouse, Gabriel Thompson officially became Gabriel Thompson. He himself signed the adoption papers with careful handwriting, using a golden pen William had bought especially for the occasion. Now we're family forever, William said, hugging his officially adopted son. We always were, Gabriel replied, touching his cross. The papers just agree with our heart now. 1 year later, the Gabriel Thompson Foundation had been established, identifying and supporting gifted children in underserved communities throughout America. The boy who once slept in an orphanage now ensured other special children never felt alone or inadequate. In Aerotech's office, a framed photo showed Gabriel and William on adoption day. Beside it, a golden plaque read, "Dedicated to all children who dream of flying, not just with airplanes, but with their unique gifts." And on Detroit's clear nights, when the boy who revolutionized American aviation looked through his new home's windows, he still talked to the stars, no longer asking for a family, but thanking for having found not just a father, but also his own ability to transform the world through love. Gabriel Thompson had proven that sometimes the greatest miracles come in the smallest packages, and that true love doesn't just accept our differences, it celebrates them, protects them, and transforms them into forces capable of changing the world.